I've lived in New Jersey my entire life, and I've been involved in lots of arts. Acting, writing, gourmet cooking. I even married a musician. But a lot of people don't think New Jersey is known for arts and culture. Well, they're wrong. And my goal is to introduce the most talented people I know. They're singers, they're writers, they're musicians, they're actors, they're chefs, they're martial artists. They represent every art you can imagine, and they're going to be on my show. Every one of them. Well, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. So they're from New Jersey, and maybe they're not so famous. But maybe they should be. I'm Lucille Lasapio, and this is Not So Famous in New Jersey. The first time I met Oria Alexander was in a recording session when I was blown away by her maturity and her voice. Now, she's not just a performer, she's also a composer and a recording artist. She's the daughter of Glenn Alexander, the storied jazz, rock, and blues guitarist. But she's earned a place in the music industry in her own right. Our conversation went from Tony Bennett to nursing to suicide. I'm here today with Oria Aspen Alexander, or Oria Aspen, or Oria, whatever you want to call her, that's who she is. Hello.
Hello.
We just finished doing a little recording session.
We did.
I didn't do any singing.
You should have.
We will.
You could have.
So you and your father, Glenn Alexander, have been performing together for a while in Shadowland and Blue Americana, and most recently as Glenn and Oria.
Yes.
Which was supposed to become the Glenn and Oria Band. And by the way, I think the name of the band should just be Oria. It should. It's a good name for a band. Anyway, that's just me. So what are the similarities between these different groups, and how have things changed from group to group?
I think it's more the style of music that we do. For Glenn and Oria, it's kind of a smorgasbord of like whatever we want. For Blue Americana, we were trying to focus more on Americana music. But I think then we realized that wasn't totally the direction we want to go in. And then with my music, I just write whatever feels correct at the time, I guess.
What kind of music do you like to write?
I guess you'd class it under indie. I like to write a lot of ballads.
Is it like more personal?
Yeah, I like to write about like mental health and the daily struggles of life and stuff like that.
Obviously, you're into music, but you're into other arts as well, aren't you? You draw, right?
I do. Probably not as much as I used to.
Yeah. But what other arts really kind of touch you?
I make polymer clay creatures.
Ooh.
Yeah, I should have
Like
brought
Gumby?
some. Like Gumby, yeah. I make these little like octopus guys.
Oh.
And then I make like fruits with like eyeballs. I put eyeballs on everything. I don't know why. Everything has to have eyeballs.
Well, yeah. All right, so let's get back to singing. When did you start singing?
Oh, I don't even remember. Maybe when I was born. I've always been very loud and a little bit annoying.
Are there particular artists that you think really influenced you?
Yes, absolutely, for sure. I grew up listening to Ella Fitzgerald. Like, I'm still just obsessed with her, even though I think she passed away 2 years after I was born. She might as well still be alive in my world. Because out of every singer, Ella Fitzgerald is like the one that I always think of as like my idol.
Yeah.
And I grew up listening to her, and there's this CD with her and Louis Armstrong, and I loved it. I would ask my parents to play that every day when I was a kid. And then, you know, as I got older and I got more into like mainstream music, I listened to a lot of like Miley Cyrus and Amy Winehouse and those kind of people. But I think like nobody will ever top Ella Fitzgerald.
So do you think your singing is influenced by her singing? Is that the kind of singing that you emulate?
I would say as much as I can.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
only
Ella
Ella is
Fitzgerald,
Ella,
just
yeah.
right, exactly. She just had this amazing voice that like nobody could ever truly emulate. But certain things, absolutely, I try to kind of take pieces from her. And then also, you know, Miley Cyrus and Amy Winehouse, I take from them
I
too.
love Amy Winehouse, yeah.
Amy Winehouse had a tragic life.
Back when I was in college, I had the opportunity to take a year to go to Japan and, you know, teach English. And I didn't go because of a guy, of course. And I always regretted that. So if you could change anything in your past life, what would it be?
I think probably try to love myself sooner. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's been a habit of mine, I guess. I don't even know if it's a habit or just like ingrained in me, but to just judge every part of myself and to hate myself. And it's funny because I don't do that with other people. I just had this amount of like detest for myself. And only recently have I actually started to kind of
like
get
yourself?
through that and start to like myself. And I kind of wish that when I was like 13, I could have just told myself,
Yeah.
hey, like, just love yourself. Like,
But, I think that's so common. I think,
Yeah.
especially, I don't know if it's just more common among girls, but I think it's
Yeah.
very, very common among girls, especially
For
like that
sure.
12, 13-year-old.
Yeah.
It's like, you hate yourself. I'm ugly.
yeah.
Nobody likes me. I remember
Yeah.
going to my first dance in the 7th grade, and not one boy asked me to dance. Not one. Oh, I'm like, I still have my little diary. When I take that out and read it, I remember exactly how I felt. I mean, it's like I'm 13 again when I read that. So it's
Maybe
not
none of
unusual.
those boys deserved you.
Don't. And you know what?
Didn't.
And I love it when they try to be nice to me now. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you never asked me to dance.
Exactly.
So fuck you. Yeah. Now, I grew up in a really big family. I had 3 sisters and 2 brothers.
Oh, wow.
And we always had somebody else living in our house. So what was your childhood like?
I grew up actually in a really small family. I grew up originally with my mom and dad. I'm an only child. It's funny, I don't usually tell people that I'm an only child because I feel like there's a certain level of stigma around it. Like, oh, you're spoiled or you've always gotten everything you wanted. And it's like, hey, even if I did, does that give you a reason to judge me?
Yeah.
I don't.
So
But-
what?
Well, yeah. And it's like also like I didn't. And I don't think anybody does. I think that everybody has their own struggles in life, like to some degree. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I grew up in a small family and then my parents got divorced. So then I was in a smaller family. But I think Will Ferrell said this at one point that like when your parents get divorced, it's actually a good thing because they don't fight anymore. And then suddenly you have 2 Christmases. So.
No, I listened to you do a cover of Fly Me to the Moon.
Oh, yes.
And it struck me how easily you were able to cross over to a more classic style of music. So did you ever dream about doing a duet with Tony Bennett?
Ella Fitzgerald. Always. But of course. Tony Bennett, of course.
Yeah.
It's funny. There's that Lady Gaga CD with Lady Gaga and Tony Bennett. And I remember thinking like, oh boy, I have a long way to go before I can compete with these people at all.
So what song would you want to sing with him?
Quiet Nights of Quiet Stars. There's a version in Portuguese. Or no, it's How Insensitive that's in Portuguese. I'm so sorry. I mix those 2 up all the time. My brain is like soup. Not a thick soup either. It's like a very liquid soup.
So did you at one point think about being a nurse?
Yeah.
What made you decide that music was a better fit? And did they really make you dissect a cat?
No.
Oh, good.
So there's like, you can. I mean, I think some classes dissect a cat, but when I was in the cat dissection class, it was during COVID.
Oh, good.
So it never came up. But in my anatomy and physiology book, there are pictures of a dissected cat.
I didn't even like dissecting frogs. When did you decide that music was a better fit?
After about my 10th panic attack, probably, I couldn't stop having panic attacks in nursing school. It was like not really something I could control. It was just a level of anxiety that
Kind of tells you that it's not the right thing for you.
I think so.
Sometimes your body tells you,
Yeah.
like you fight it. You're like, no, this is what I want to do. And then like, no, you don't.
Yeah. Well, I don't know because I thought I wanted to help people and stuff, but then it's like, I realized that it was bad for my own mental health.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to help yourself first. When people are at their lowest and they rely on you,
Yeah.
but like you're not the top of the chain.
You're not, yeah.
So it's like you could want the best for the patient, but like management may not really allow that to happen. And I think I realized how anxious and upset the field of nursing was making me.
Yeah.
Just like at the idea of
Being
like, trying
responsible.
to care for people,
Yeah.
being responsible for somebody's life in your hands. Like I think it was just a level of anxiety that I wasn't prepared for.
Yeah. One of my best friend's daughters, her goal was always to be an actor. And she went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And then she suddenly realized, I don't really like being in front of an audience. So she became a television writer.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so now she writes for television, she produces, and she's so much happier.
Like I really wanted to help people, and that's why I went into nursing. But then my dad told me that you can help people with music too, because
Yes.
when people listen to your songs, they relate, and it helps them get through hard times or happier and happy times or whatever.
I mean, I can think of so many times when like I was going through a really bad time, and like just like a certain song would just make me feel better.
Yeah. But yeah, I think music has that ability to like cause emotional changes and like fluctuations in emotion.
Yeah. So you've traveled around a lot as a musician. What part of the country did you go to that you were most pleasantly surprised with? Or what part of the country do you want to avoid from now on?
You know, it's funny because California is like where the music scene is, but the last time I was in California, I was 17 and it was a horrible experience. It was like, I don't really even know what to say because I kind of went there with a lot of hopes and dreams that immediately got shut down. And people in California are kind of the opposite of people in New Jersey. Like, people in New Jersey, like, they'll kind of stare at you and like and be a little nasty, but like once you're actually divulging your emotions to them, suddenly you're best friend. People in California are kind of the opposite. They're very nice on the surface, for instance, but then it's kind of fake underneath that. And like, I don't mean that in a mean way.
Yeah.
I just think the West Coast vibe is very different than the East Coast vibe.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is appearances on on the West Coast, and like in New Jersey, people are pretty straightforward.
Yes,
they'll go they'll tell you to go fuck yourself in a second.
Yeah, like they beat around the bush a lot more in California.
So in addition to being a fabulous singer, you also play a couple of instruments, right?
Kind of.
Because I've seen you on stage. You play.
I play the flute.
Yeah.
But I'd say the flute's probably the only instrument I actually like play. Mm-hmm. Like, I just play a lot of block chords on piano so that I can write music. Mm-hmm. And on the ukulele as well, I play like a couple chords so that it helps me write songs. But
Did you teach yourself or did you take lessons?
I took a lot of lessons on the flute. I had hopes and dreams of being a flute player when I was younger and going to a conservatory and whatever, but life kind of had different plans for me.
Well, and again, like, a lot of times we make these plans for ourselves.
Yeah.
And unless you really hate the way your life is now, it's kind of better that it didn't work out.
Right, right, yeah. I did have some friends who it worked out for, like friends who I met at Interlochen over the summer, and they went to conservatories and they play in orchestras now, and that works for them. Mm-hmm. But I think I hit kind of a wall when I was around 17, 18, where nothing was working for me anymore.
You've recorded some music, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about the music that you've recorded or what you're planning to record.
So I recorded an album between the ages of 13 and 16.
And how old are you now?
I'm 29 now.
Okay.
And I think that was just like me sticking my toes in the water, trying to figure out kind of what I wanted to do in terms of music. Because there's really no theme of that album. It's just like songs of very different genres kind of piled into one 14-song album.
Yeah.
But I think I realized I do like kind of like the more alternative indie feel, and like, despite what my dad says, I kind of like a lot of ballads and slow songs, like Death Cab for Cutie vibes. I was an emo kid in high school.
Bringing up your father, of course, he's a very storied guitarist.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And he's humble too.
Oh,
which
yeah.
is
It's funny because like I just seem like an absolute idiot compared to my dad when it comes to music. So
well, he should know a lot more. I mean,
he's
been
a
around
professor
a long time.
too.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he knows enough where like.
Yeah.
Like, he knows so much.
Yeah, music theory and all
scary.
that. Yeah.
My dad, like, doesn't like ballads that much. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe he does. I think it's me just being naive to how the music industry works.
Yeah. But, sometimes it's like, are you doing what the industry wants or are you doing what you want?
Well, and also, like, when we're playing gigs and what we record on albums, I struggle to separate it. My dad always has to remind me that we need to play a lot of high energy music on the gig.
Yeah.
And
that's what people expect.
yeah, and it's for some reason I don't like that. Like, I want to get to a place where like I can just stand up there on stage and sing from my heart rather than like try to force myself to entertain like a crowd of people.
Yeah.
I want them to be entertained by the music rather than like the energy of it. But I think that's probably selfish a little bit.
It's your skill, it's your performance. It's hard to separate, I think. And this is the thing about the arts. Mm-hmm. In the arts, you want to be a singer or an actor or a painter.
Right.
But then it's like, oh, I've got to do something that's going to sell.
Yes.
So when you're doing it for money, it can never be pure art.
Right, but then I think about people like, and you know what's funny, because like when you see celebrities, you don't know even 1/100th of their life.
Exactly.
But like to me, when I listen to like Taylor Swift or whatever, you know, it feels like she writes from the heart. So it kills me when, you know, I have to write less from the heart and more from like what vibe I feel like people might want to hear.
Yeah.
But my dad has always told me like, look, you don't have to cater your songwriting in that way, but in terms of gigs, we have to.
Yeah, club gigs.
We had a bit of a fight about that. Like, well, not a fight, but like an argument, because I didn't want to change up what we did for a higher energy set. But he assured me that, hey, this isn't what you have to do forever. It's
well,
just,
yeah,
like,
this
for
is
the
just
gigs.
getting your reputation. Yeah. What's your favorite thing about playing with him?
I don't know. I just love him. He's my dad.
I mean, the two of you always look like you're really enjoying each other on stage.
Oh, I just think he's like probably like the coolest person. I don't really know how to describe it. I don't know how many people like have a dad who.
Yeah. And I'm jealous because I never had that kind of relationship with my father.
I think maybe it is because I'm an only child. There weren't like a possibility of like better options. It's just like you have me and only me. So, because I think and I hate to say this because it's not about how I think my parents are. It's more about how I think I am. But I think if I had siblings, they would have overshadowed me in every single way because I've had most of my life, I don't know where I'm going, and I've had many failures. And on top of that, a lot of mental illness and going to rehab and crazy things like that. Mm-hmm. And I think if I had siblings, maybe they wouldn't have fucked up that much, should I say. And I don't know if I would have had as much love from my parents because I was kind of a problem child, but because I was the only one, my parents were kind of forced to go with it and like help me and whatnot. But sometimes I think if I had siblings that weren't going through that, they wouldn't have. But
yeah, you wouldn't have gotten that kind of attention.
Right. But it's like, it stinks because it's like, I didn't necessarily want attention. I think I was just mentally ill. I don't know how to describe it, I guess.
Suicide is an issue that you don't shy away from, and
I try not to.
Yeah, you've talked about friends whose deaths people say were accidental or cause unknown, and you felt that you knew that that's not the case. That's not what actually happened. So what do you think is the best thing to do to help someone that you think is struggling?
Just ask them how you can help. And you know, of course, there's going to be people, because I've done it before, where you turn around and you're just like, just kill me. Like, rather than like letting that person know how they can help you, you just want to turn to them and say, like, you can kill me. That's how you can help me. And I've said that to many people before, my parents, friends, normals.
Yeah, normals.
I say, like, ask them. And then if they say something like that, say, like, hey, I know you're really hurting right now.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you want me to stay here with you tonight, like, I can. You know, like, when my friends have rough days, I always ask them, like, do you just need somebody with you? Do you need time alone? Like, what do you feel like you need right now?
Yeah. Whenever I have singers on my podcast, we always sing a song together. How about Heard It Through the Grapevine?
Oh, Heard It Through the Grapevine. Okay. Ooh, I bet you're wondering how I knew. Baby, 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 about your plans to make me blue.
Oh, yeah.
With some other girl you knew before. Between the two of us, girls, you know I love you more. It took me by surprise, I must say, when I found out yesterday. And don't you know that I heard it through the grapevine? Ooh, not much longer would you be mine. Don't you know that I heard it through the grapevine? Ooh, and I'm just about about to lose my mind. Oh, yes, I am.
Oh, yes, I am.
Oh, yes, I am. That lyric, I'm about to lose my mind. Oh, yes, I am.
Yeah.
That is like, it like narrates my whole life, that lyric. I don't even know if I should say this. I'll just go ahead. Maybe not. My therapist thinks that I'm autistic.
Really?
Because of like this strong sensitivity to noises and
I
like
guess that's
the
possible.
inability
Or like
to control my emotions.
Spectrum.
On the spectrum, yeah,
Yeah.
like what used to be called Asperger's,
Yeah.
for instance. Like that's what my therapist thinks that I have, and she thinks that I was misdiagnosed with like the other 10 things, which is common because they never studied women with autism. They only studied men. They never studied women in anything,
Well,
even
course
birth
not,
control. They
because
tested it on men.
They're not that, they're not that important.
Misogyny.
So here's my last question, Oria. What is something that people don't know about you that you wish they did?
Oh, I'm such an open book.
But there's got to be something.
I think what I wish people knew about me is that 99.99% of the time, my intentions are good. So whether or not I stick my foot in my mouth, say something stupid, say something that's off color or that might come off as mean, if somebody just comes back at me and says, hey, that was nasty, why would you say that? And then I'm going back and I'm saying, oh my God, I'm sorry. But if you just come at me and say, you're a horrible person, I hate you, this and that, like people on the internet do, then I'm not inclined to want to explain to them where I came from. But I want people to know that I do have good intentions. I just don't say always.
Well, that's the problem
right
with social
thing.
media. It isn't even just social media. If you were writing letters to each other or emailing, it's very easy to misconstrue people's intention.
Right.
You're putting up an Instagram, a little video, but they're replying with written words.
Right. And I also make like sarcastic jokes too.
Yes.
And like sometimes like people take it wrong, which I've taken people's sarcasm wrong before also. So
But that's why people that are my friends, they get it. They
Right,
know. They
right.
know what I mean. Yeah.
the same thing with my friends. Like my friends know that like my intentions are good. Sometimes they'll stop me and be like, Oria, what did you just say? And I'll be like, what was it? And then they'll explain to me like, hey, this didn't sit well with me. And the minute someone says that, when someone explains like it didn't sit well, how they're feeling, whatever, I'm so quick to say, I'm so sorry. How can we make this right? But if somebody comes for me, I have like no desire to make it right. And
sure.
The borderline personality disorder plays a little bit of a role in that, but
Well, Oria, thank you so much.
thank you for having me.
Yes, this was
I'm
fun.
so sorry that you saw my Instagram. I feel so bad.
Don't feel bad. It gave me a little bit of insight into
I
you.
should probably private that page.
Where else can you hear scintillating conversations with interesting people with ties to New Jersey, except for here? You can't, and that's why you should subscribe and listen to every episode. I'm Lucille Osapio, and this is Not So Famous in New Jersey.